Whew. Alright. What's up, guys? It's Gary. So, you remember we had that red Craftsman we were working on, and we had this twisted belt situation. That's how they come from the factory, but when we pulleyed it, it just became a nightmare, and the angles were so far off getting the belt to go from a vertical shaft engine to a horizontal shaft transaxle. And this engine, this is a pretty old Briggs opposed twin, 656cc, so it's a 40 cubic inch horizontal shaft. It actually came off of a snapper mower, probably I want to say it was probably a late 70s, maybe a little bit into the 80s, but it was a pretty old machine. I've actually had this engine for, heck, I'd probably had this engine for 15 years, at least. And it's been basically sitting in that same spot all that time. I had it a long time ago. I had it where I would just fire it up and run it a little bit, and that's it. I never did anything with it. As you can see here, it actually has a centrifugal clutch on it. So the reason I got this engine, oh wow, huh, I'll show you in a second. There's a snake skin on here. The reason I got this engine was to build a go-kart with it. So the go-kart in question is actually the one that I've been parting out for some of my machines. Most recently, we parted out the front spindles and used for the brake system on the hot rod tractor, and before that, I had actually used the steering mechanism on it to make shifter linkage. But obviously, it never turned into a go-kart. I never did anything with this engine or with that go-kart. It's actually right when I first started working at the small engine shop that I worked at for many years. Buddy of the guy who I worked for had this old snapper. He was just going to get rid of it, and so I ended up parting it out for the engine. Back then, I didn't even really think about the possibilities of building a machine out of a mower. I just thought I want an engine like this so I could build a go-kart out of it. And yeah, so basically, this thing, unfortunately, it's missing some parts. Now, it always was complete, but at one point I took it apart, and I know that I don't have some of the bits for the carburetor. They're just missing. Now, I do have 3 opposed twins sitting over there. Should be basically the same. They're all the same downdraft style carburetor, regardless of whether they're horizontal shaft or vertical shaft. These particular engines, these opposed twins, have the same carburetor on them. So my plan is we're going to see if we can get this thing to fire up. I'm going to have to take one of the carburetors off of the other ones, and I'm just going to probably take one off the one that I know runs, put it on here. We'll see if it'll fire. Get this clutch off of here. Hopefully that's not going to be too big of an issue. I don't have an air hammer or anything. That's really been on there for 15 years at least. So we'll get that off there. It is a 1-inch crank. I have a pulley. I have a 5-inch pulley that we could throw on it for now, and we'll see if we can make this thing go onto that Craftsman, and that'll solve our vertical shaft to horizontal shaft belt issue. Hopefully I'll be able to do it with the same belt that's on there. It's not going to be a bolt-on by any means. There's going to be a lot of stuff in the way. I'm going to have to add an idler pulley because of the way the belt's going to have to go to the transaxle. And I might want to do a few other things to it, but we'll see if we have time. I'm literally doing this with 2 days. I only have 2 days to make this happen. And like I said, if this was just an engine swap, I could do this in a day or less, but we're not just doing an engine swap. This is not a direct bolt-on, so we're going to have to make it work. And really, I don't even know. If this engine turns over, it should run. It's, it doesn't have points or anything. It's electronic ignition, so it should fire right up as long as we got fuel to it and a good carburetor with all the parts included in the carburetor. So let's start playing with it. Check out this snake skin. Nice. Look at that. Wow. That's freaking great. Man, I had a hell of a time getting that centrifugal clutch off there. It was really on there. So as far as the carburetor goes, I looked in there and actually I don't think I'm missing anything, and it looks like it would run. The only problem is, I'm missing this little plug, but I have another one of those I could put in. But I don't have the gasket for between here, which it sucks because I actually had, all these years, I've had a brand new gasket for that. And I feel like recently I actually saw it. But I looked around where I thought it was, and I can't find it. So we are just going to take a carburetor from one of the other ones and throw on here, like I said. But before I go that far, let me at least just see if it'll turn over with the starter. Of course, if that doesn't happen, I also have another starter I could probably throw on here from one of the other ones, but I want to see if it'll turn over. Alright, let's see if we got starter. Oh yeah. Beautiful. This was always a really good running engine. You can tell it's strong compression on both cylinders. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, bloody. So here's a little side-by-side comparison of the two. Dimensionally, from top to bottom, they are exactly the same. They obviously are a bit different in other ways, but the throttles are exactly the same. You know, the fuel inlets on the pumps are the same. Everything is everything that needs to be the same is the same. Air cleaner mounts, throttle cable, but there are slight differences. This is an original Briggs, and I would assume this is an original Briggs as well, but it does not have any markings on it, so who knows. So you can see the spacer that the vertical shaft engines have, and it's got this, it's actually tapered. It's like a Venturi kind of taper to it. It's got these kind of air straightener deals out, or air straighteners in there. But it has this little dowel, which of course I could just get rid of that. I don't know if it would be beneficial to run this or not. Alright, check this out. I remember my friend did something with this and I forgot what it was. See that divider? That is not factory. That is JB Weld. Yeah, so he put JB Weld in there. And basically, at that point, ported it so that it would, well, you know, shaved it or grinded on it to give some sort of flow path to increase performance. Did it work? Who knows? I like it. I wouldn't do it because it seems like a lot of work for probably minimal to no gain, but you never know. Maybe it made a big difference. It's like looks like a big old Stromberg on a hot rod. Alright, got it all set up. New carbies on there. Got our test tank, battery set up, ready to go, and let's see what this thing does. Alright, so if you're new to the channel, this was a garden tractor that I got for free fairly recently, and went ahead, it actually was all burnt up in the front end. The hood looked like crap, the front plastic grill was all melted. So, cosmetically, we just got rid of that, got rid of the sides, cut the sides off the hood. Kind of did our little redneck hood pin setup. Those threaded rods actually screw right into existing holes in the frame. This is the rear frame cap and toe setup from a different chassis, an LT 2000 Craftsman chassis. It is a Kohler V-twin, 25 horsepower with the 3-speed high-low H-pattern transaxle. But otherwise, it is a totally stock machine, and all we did was pulley it to make it a little faster. But the big downside to this type of setup is that it has a horizontal shaft on the transaxle and a vertical shaft engine. Now, these transaxles came in much older versions of these, like early, Sears Suburbans and early Craftsmans. And they actually had horizontal shaft engines running those style transaxles. And at some point, they'd figured out that they could put a vertical shaft and just have a twisted belt. I really don't like the setup, because when you pulley it like I did, which that's in the video, you could see that I actually just welded the hubs. I drilled the hubs out of the pulleys and swapped them directly, and it just throws the angles way off, and we kept throwing belts. So figured I just want to swap on a horizontal shaft engine, but I'm going to go much further than that. At the end of the day, if I just swap the engine, it's still just this machine with a different engine on it. So let's start tearing it apart and see what we can do with it. It's almost entirely empty, but all right, now you can get a really good look at this transaxle. And your low range comes in here. Pushes that in and out. And I believe there's a planetary gear on the final drive. That's how that works. You can see here how I did the brake setup. That's just the original rod, the original linkage rod that went to this brake. Normally this would have been all the way over here, and that connected up to the pedal as a clutch brake, like any lawnmower is. And you could see that we got her hooked up to that. Oh, our spring, this actually was connected up here. It must have came off when I just took that fender off. And basically that goes there. I just added that, that's not original. And there you go, that's how we have our brake set up. But yeah, let's continue taking her down to her bare bones and get an idea where we're gonna go with it. steering's in the way, but that's alright because we're just going to take the engine off. Okay, this one's actually heavier than the F-twin. Oh, am I leaking? Oh, wow. Alright, well, here is what she looks like stripped down. I did forget to take the running boards off, but you get the idea. I wish I had a whole one of these guys to put next to it, or I should say a stock one to put next to it. I mean, they're really totally different. Those GT chassis are way stronger. You can kind of get an idea by looking at this one. The stamped frame with like this kind of side pieces on the back, very thin, and it's really just a flat stamping with the sides on it. You can kind of see it on this one as well. Same chassis. And here's yet another one. Of course, this one has a Murray chassis welded to the back of it. That'll be another project for the future. This is definitely a lot stronger, a lot better built, but it doesn't necessarily lend itself to modifying as easily because of how it's designed here, how it kicks up. It is definitely stronger. I mean, it's got a flange on the top and the bottom, so it's not just like a flat-sided piece, although I think is it at the back? Yeah, it kind of is at the back, but it does have that flange there at the bottom, so pretty strong. Definitely looks strong, and it is thicker. It is a lot thicker. What I like about it too is how it's in the front here, just open, and it has this engine plate that bolts to it. So we can take that engine plate off and put it wherever we want. You know, we can move the engine forward. We can move the engine back. We can put our hand in front of it so that it doesn't focus on what we're trying to focus on and actually focuses on my hand. But yeah, I'm going to definitely, I want to think outside the box on this one. As much as I really am tempted to just take this engine plate, move it forward, take this axle, unbolt it, and bolt it right up to the front, not to the front here, but right underneath, because you can see it has, the way that it is, it bolts right underneath there. So there's actually already holes up here to get me started. We could just move that guy right up here. Probably going to do that anyway, if not something more drastic, but the axle will be going forward. We'll be extending this thing a bit. And yeah, I'm tempted to just put the engine plate forward and sit back here like we always do, right? But one thing to think about is that we can't sit nearly as low because of the way this transaxle is. Yeah, and I don't know. Do I want it to just end up, when we got to figure out our steering either way, whether we're sitting back here or if it's mid-engine, doesn't matter. Do we want to go crazy and put it in the back? It's going to be weird. It's going to be wild if we do. I'm thinking literally right on the top of the transaxle here. And we can take our engine plate, bolt it right there, clearance it so that the belt can go down through. Then we got to make some kind of really custom shifter linkage, or at least long shifter, something to get us up here, because at that point we'll be sitting probably somewhere in the middle here. We're gonna have to take our whole steering setup, put it out front. It's gonna be a pretty big project if we want to go that route, but it's gonna be a big project either way, because even if I want to do the normal sit in the back, engine in the front thing, getting the steering re-engineered and all that, and the clutch clutch working, and everything's gonna still be a thing. So yeah, let's get her back in there and start mocking things up and see what we think. But I'm just kind of looking at this right now and just mocking it up, because I do think I have the bits necessary to make this work. You know, we can just come off of here. We'll add, I got a piece of square I think I could probably put on the front here to mount to this and link it up to the frame. You know, well, basically weld some metal up here to extend the frame just that little bit so we can mount this up. And that will, let's see, where's my, if I was to roughly estimate where the wheelbase center was, which would be right at the center of the bolt mounting hole, the axle mounting hole, that's about 10 inches. That's actually, that makes sense. That's about 10 inches additional wheelbase right there. And we're at about 47 or so stock, so that would be us to 57. By the way, so 57 inches right now, and just for reference, the hot rod tractor is about 64 inches. A little bit makes all the difference in the world as far as the look of the machine goes, and the function. Of course, we're going to have to extend our steering drag link, but we're going to have to do a whole bunch of stuff with the steering anyway, so it's kind of the last thing I'm really worried about. Alright, so I probably shouldn't even show you this because we're not doing it, but I just wanted to kind of say that one of the hardest things about doing YouTube, or especially building something on YouTube, is trying to not be repetitive. So, you know, the easiest thing to do would be put the engine right out here in front. I got another old school hood I could put on it, and we'll sit back there. I believe that's what we're gonna do. And I had this set up, right? I was looking at it like this, kind of thinking, what can I do that's just different? Wacky, wild, different, something that I haven't done before that's gonna look different. And, you know, I was thinking, cut the frame down. We could sit real low. I actually have an identical seat to the hot rod tractor I could put on here, or we could put that go-kart seat on there. Basically making it like a go-kart in a way, you know. You're sitting in the middle, kind of, legs out here. The engine's a bit high, though. And yes, it would be kind of a cool wheelie setup if it was like that. And I would be able to lower it another couple inches. I would cut the frame down and be able to lower it. But really, unless I run wheel spacers, and I probably would, I wouldn't be able to lower it that much anyway. Basically not at all. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Because if I get another one of these, or maybe something, I don't know, I may in the future do something like this. But I don't think we're going to do this. I just really did want to show you because, I don't know. On one hand, it kind of looks ridiculous. But on the other hand, I could picture the seat sitting real low down in here. That a couple inches lower. and maybe even the original hood kind of over the front, so like almost like an aerodynamic kind of nose on it, and maybe a collector for the exhaust pointing back. You know, kind of a go-kart spec, but still high riding, off-roadable. Obviously still has the low range and all that stuff. Part of the reason I really am kind of going away from this idea is a lot of the complication involved that I just don't really feel like going into right now, because I want to kind of make something happen quickly. Obviously, we're going to have this, we're going to have to like redo our clutch. I don't think having the clutch down here and it being belt driven, you know, well, we wouldn't be able to have the clutch down here because the seat would basically be right there. So we'd have to like relocate the clutch, which means we'd have to completely do custom linkage for the clutch. Then we would have to probably link, I would say probably we'll just put a linkage to here, to a pedal out here, or we could like maybe extend something off of the side out to there for the clutch. The throttle pedal and everything, that's easier, you know, that's just the throttle pedal. But, and the brake as well, another thing we'd have to think about. So there is a lot more complication to it doing it this way. Also, I would have to cut a lot more of the frame. So I'd basically be cutting all the way down to this level of the frame. And that would mean I'd have to do a lot more reinforcing to this frame. It's a very kind of interestingly designed frame. It is strong the way it's designed. You start cutting that off, you're going to have to add reinforcements, or even just take that top part and kind of drop it down. Like sectioning the frame would be kind of the way to go. But I don't think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to go with the traditional engine out in front, sit on the back. And I gotta be honest, that's how I prefer the machine to be set up. I just like driving a front engine machine more than like a go-kart, for example. You know, a regular go-kart with the engine behind you sitting in back. The chassis dynamics, the general way that it feels when you're driving it, I just like it better when it's like engine out in front of you, long nose, sitting over the rear tires. And I will say though, I did mock up the go-kart seat, even though I planned on having this chassis cut down, the go-kart seat like low, but I mocked up the go-kart seat in the middle there, just in front of the engine. And I sat there just to kind of get an idea where my feet might land, and it actually did feel and look kind of cool. But I don't want this to be a project that lasts forever, so let's go ahead and stick the engine on front. What I was thinking is maybe we just cut the rear of the frame down a couple inches to drop the seat down a little bit. And we'll kind of go our old traditional route. This engine plate is where it was stock. I could just move this engine plate out here so we get a little bit more leg room in between there. And as you obviously saw before, I already did start the process of moving the axle out, which is now about 10 inches forward from where it was. I stuck this here mainly just to like hold the chassis rails together because I was going to take that off. And obviously that's holding it together, but I wanted the extra reinforcement. But if I was going to do the mid-engine deal or the rear engine mid-seat deal, I was thinking about having that there and leaving. That would actually be perfect for like where the pedals would go and everything. But again, I don't think we are going to do this. But let me know what you guys think. Should I tackle something like this in the future? Is there any real interest in this other than it just being absolutely ridiculous and probably doing wheelies? I don't really see the benefit of it. Alright, nothing is ever as easy as it appears. So, of course, we bolted our original engine plate further forward. The rear two holes I thought were going to work are not. But just to get me started, I have the one bolt in there, and already we have an issue, and that is we need to get this engine over like another probably inch or two. Because the belt And this is just a belt, not necessarily the belt, but you know, the belt is obviously not going to work right there, even with our pulley all the way up against the engine. So it looks like another inch or two, at least another probably 2 inches. And that means much more customization is going to have to happen here, because fabrication really, because as you can see, this engine plate dives in the middle. And even if we put the engine all the way up against that, which it, well, basically is, that's not going to work. The frame is only so wide, so we can't really move the whole engine plate over. I do have another idea that I'm just noticing now. Alright, usually the simplest way that I can figure something out is the best way to do it. At least for me. So, the engine plate is still bolted in place. Well, it's only got one bolt in it right now, but technically two. So what I did was, what we're going to do here, I know the lighting kind of stinks here, is that's the bolt that would be going into the frame over there for the engine plate. So we're just riding the engine right up on top of here. And that bolt is going to hold the engine on this side. So it's going to sit right up on the frame. Now, of course, it's a little, you know, it's about an inch higher than it was. Maybe not even really. It's about maybe a ½ inch higher than it was. Not really noticeable. Not really going to matter. And we will probably just for now use washers. We could come up with something for a spacer, but washers will work fine. We'll drill our new holes there. And of course, we're going to have to drill a new hole for the front on this side as well. But critically and crucially, our belt is going to line up, and because we are sticking with this front engine setup, we're still going to be able to use our original clutch. The only difference is the only real big thing is we're probably going to have to add another idler pulley somewhere in the system. There was the other idler pulley right up here that was for the kind of where it went from the vertical shaft. So we'll probably just repurpose that one, and I also have another one, I think, if I need it, that we could probably put more to the back or in the middle. Wherever it needs to go, we'll kind of figure it out. That's not the final location. I don't even know if I'm going to use that seat, although it is a really good seat and it's pretty comfortable. And ideally, I'd probably like to keep the spring action on it, because I realized that the reason why that other one rode so smoothly on the driveway and everything was because of the spring seat that I don't have on any of the other machines. But I was still considering maybe using this go-kart seat. I don't really want to use the other go-kart, the other one, like the hot rod tractor seat that I have. I'm going to save that for a different project. So it's either going to be that seat or the go-kart fiberglass seat. That seat there, that'll be more comfortable, but it'll be hard to stay on, just like it is on the hot rod tractor. That seat will keep us in place, and we might even be able to figure out a way to make the springs work with this seat as well. But again, we won't really know until we get there. The beautiful thing about this, so we are going to cut this frame down, because there is probably a good 2.5 inches maybe of space that we could drop our seat into, and I definitely want to get that as low as possible. Now, unfortunately, with this transmission setup, you can't go quite as low as you can with like your regular style lawnmower transmission. But that aside, I am looking forward to getting this shifter set up to where I'm going to probably extend this shifter over to here and kind of get it working like, you know, a side shifter like it should be. And we'll do the same thing with our high-low range. We'll kind of extend that so that we have more easy access to it while we're sitting there. It definitely looks interesting. I mean, the engine kind of looks a little bit small on this thing, which is all good. But yeah, let's just keep figuring it out. Keep working at it and see where we end up. I'm digging it so far. Alright, so now we need to establish our seating position, and I'm going to lower it as far as I can lower it to this transmission. So, first thing I'm going to do is just start cutting. I think what I'm going to do is pretty much take this line here, because the shifter's right there, so the seat's not going to really be any further forward than that. I'm going to cut right down to here, the same holes on the other side, and we're going to basically go straight back right over that. That's the other transmission mount. And that's about as low as we can go because the shifter is about as high as that trans mount. So I don't think we'll be able to go any lower than that anyway. Now I may actually end up cutting further off the front here, depending on where my legs end up. But we're going to kind of take a little bit off at a time here. So we got to keep in mind that I would like to keep the or make the springs work, the little seat springs. I'd like to get those to be back there, so you know we could use the pivoting bolts. Just want to see kind of where we're at with it. Nowhere near as low as on the hot rod tractor, which kind of sucks, but I think it's just going to be what it is on this machine. Be riding a little higher. I don't know. It's just not doing it for me. You know, I'll admit that I wasn't really expecting to get this done in this video because I kind of didn't do anything for... I didn't do any of this kind of stuff for like a whole week. Figured in 2 days I could transform this thing into something. And well, we cut it up and we took it apart. We didn't really make anything out of it yet other than kind of sticking parts to it. I'm actually honestly thinking about still trying the whole rear engine thing because right now this is just not doing it for me. I'm looking at it and it's just, it looks like everything else that I've already had or built. Like it is literally just what it is, right? It's another front engine lawn tractor based deal. Now again, like I said before, I prefer front engine, but there's just nothing really unique or interesting about this right now. And I'm especially disappointed with the fact that the seat has to be that high because of the transaxle design. And it is a significantly lower than it was stock, probably by at least 6 inches, but it's just, I'm sitting on it. When I sit on it, it just doesn't really give me any kind of vibe. I think it's because the hot rod tractor is so much lower, the seating position, that has the vibe I'm looking for. It has that kind of really sitting down in the machine. The engine is like, the front end would be like at eye level, whereas this, I'm sitting way the heck up and I'm looking down into the carburetor. So I was kind of liking this idea because I have a belt that I think would work, and therefore I wouldn't have to buy anything. And I don't have a short belt, and we'd have to re-engineer the clutch. We'd have to engineer braking and clutching and all this stuff. Whereas doing it this way, we wouldn't really have to re-engineer anything. We'd just kind of have to modify a little bit, you know. Basically, we could make a throttle pedal and a brake pedal and clutch and everything would all kind of fall into place. But is it worth it to just go this route? Well, you guys let me know what you think. Put it in the comments. I am going to, I think, take this engine off the front, remove that seat out of there, and I'm going to put the engine back in the back again. Just to see, just to kind of look. The only thing is, if we do that, we really have to commit, because in order to go the route that I was thinking, I basically already have a head start. Where we cut for the seat, I was going to cut anyway in order to drop the engine that much further down. But we really got to commit, because doing that, the engine would be basically right where that seat is. I was going to cut all of that away, basically to the level of that front part there. And the seat would be right there. Of course, our legs would be all the way out to there. It'd be a whole different vibe, a whole different machine at that point. And I won't be using this seat if we do that. I'm going to be using a different seat, basically the same seat that I have on the hot rod tractor. It's going to be a lot bigger project. It's going to take a lot longer to finish. But do we want to just finish it because... Do we want to just make it what it is because it's easier? Or do we want it to actually be unique and different? Well, let me play around with that a little bit more, move that engine. We'll take a look at it again, and then you guys will let me know what you think. Because obviously this ain't going to be driving or even close to being a rolling chassis. I mean, it sort of is a rolling chassis, but I still got to do the reinforcing for the front end. I don't know if I'm going to put the axle further forward than it is. I have a lot of thoughts about that, and I don't want to just throw it together. You know, I physically can't throw it together in time to put the video out anyway, so you're going to see the video. You are watching the video, and it's not done. So let me know what you think I should do. And I may or may not actually listen to you guys, but it would be cool to get some of your, your opinions on it. But yeah, let's move that around a little bit, take a look at it again, and refresh your memory on that. Alright, that wheel's kind of just stuck on there, but that's approximately where it would be. Now the only thing is we would have to run wheel spacers, because this side, with the engine now positioned over where I know the pulley will work, the wheel will run into the engine, so we'd need to run at least a 1 inch, but I would just go with like 2 inch spacers on it at least, because you want to get a nice wide track width anyway. So if we did it like this, we got a lot of re-engineering to do. We'll try to make our original clutch mechanism work, but we're going to have to probably relocate it. We might be able to utilize the mechanism here, but we're going to have something linking it to the front for a pedal in the front, and then of course linking it back. So it's going to be a lot more involved. Then of course the seat, I have the engine pretty much lined up. You can see it's actually ahead of the center line of the axle, which is good. It is still ridiculously high up there, but that is just the reality of the way that transaxle is, and doing this that way might, it's just what it is. Now you just got to picture what I'm thinking here, is that we have this will all be cut out down to the level of that, and then a flat seat, the same exact seat that's on my hot rod tractor. Now if you're not familiar with that, let me show it to you. So I have another one of this exact same seat. Really low profile. Nice high back. I think it would be the perfect fit for that layout. So that would give the back of the seat would be probably as high or just to the top, top of that engine right there. And, my head would be just up there. So it would look, I feel like it would look right, but of course I still don't know how this thing would drive with the engine being that high. And it would probably do wheelies. Again, I'm planning on probably putting bigger tires on the front. So I'm going to at least have either equivalent tires that I have on the rear, or we're going to go with something entirely different that's at least that big. But picture it with basically square stance, so the same exact wheel and tire on the front. Because I have another set of those exact same size tires and wheels right there. Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. Wild, wacky, and different, or just the same old thing? Alright, so let me know what you guys think. Put it in the comments. Should we go with the rear engine setup, or should we kind of just go the same old front engine, lawn tractor style, like these ones are, or that one and the regular one over here? You know, I hate just doing the same thing over and over again, so that's why I'm like kind of gearing towards maybe I should do that rear engine thing, but I don't know. It is silly. I mean, having it like sky high like that right up on top of the transmission is not the most ideal setup, but it's different and it kind of looks interesting, and I have an idea of how the front would look, because I wouldn't necessarily plan on leaving it just bare chassis. I have an idea for that if I go that route. So if we go the other route, front engine, it's likely going to be very similar to these things, you know, just a hood and the engine under it and the exhaust shooting out the side. It's kind of the same thing. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But anyway, I know that wasn't a truly satisfying video. I didn't really get anything done, unfortunately, actually done in this video. Took a bunch of stuff apart, made the engine run that basically just ran. There was nothing to do there. And we just cut some stuff up and looked at some things. So go ahead and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Like the video, comment down below. Let me know what you think, which direction we should go with this project. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.